Although the hardest I've ever been hit in pads is from my dad too. So they're also competitive. They want to win at everything, whether it's card games or whatever it might be. The enterprise of sport, and because sometimes the outside can think it may just be the athletics department or something, but it's like, no, it actually helps grow everything. It's just, there's something special about college sports.
I learned that in 2018 whenever we didn't have a stadium. Our stadium was getting built. We were supposed to host, really. We won the regional, and it was like we were supposed to host the super regional, but we had to go to Vanderbilt because our site wasn't ready. And our big thing to push was saying, no, like, I know it's halfway done, but we should still do it. It's because of the town. Yeah. Like, we were like, in the month of May or June, whatever it was, like, you know, school's getting out, a lot of the businesses leaving. We need to get a weekend where there's 15,000 people coming in and staying the weekend. It's just good for the town. So when athletics are rolling, the town's rolling.
Sure.
And that's in 2018 it made me mad about that. We had to go to Vanderbilt, but I don't know.
That's the again, the beauty of it is that everything blossoms and grows together. And I don't know, there's countless examples even within the Southeastern Conference of towns that you've seen some athletic success, and then it just gives so much exposure. It's getting the fan affinity, the alum affinity. There's something special about, you know, your time on college campus, and even if you're not a specific alum of the institution, something special about the just the euphoric atmosphere of college towns. It brings everybody up. We just got to keep doing it.
That's awesome. Well said. What I want to know, really, you've been here for a couple years, but what brought you here? What was the reason you said Mississippi State is where I'm going to bring my family?
Well, you're aging me. It doesn't feel like I've been here a couple years. I think getting close, though. Thanks for reminding me that, Jake.
Getting close.
You know, for me, college athletics has always just been a mission. And then part of my journey professionally has always been who are you going to work for? And to say it simply, like, you always want to work for a leader worth following. So I had clearly viewed as a fan of college athletics my entire life. You know Mississippi State. You know the Bulldogs. Working in the enterprise, you know what the dude is like. I mean, you hear all these things, but then you got to personalize it too as you're looking at opportunities. And I was just so grateful. I mean, I've been beyond blessed to work at great places, to work for great people. So it was never anything where I was looking to go somewhere. It happened to be one phone conversation with our president here, Dr. Keenum, and didn't talk much about athletics specifically. It was more about his vision for why he does what he does, his background in agricultural economics. Happened to be my family had adopted 3 kids from West Africa when I was in college. And so we and my mom started a soup kitchen in the hometown I grew up in back in 1983. So that was a part of my journey as far as just helping people that have sometimes we're all in a situation where at some point in our life we're going to need help. And so I just really connected with Dr. Keenum's vision for clearly what we're doing at Mississippi State, but also what he's doing on the world scale. I remember calling my wife afterwards and said, like, this is a guy that I could work for and I would want to work for. And that phone conversation really made me think differently of Mississippi State. And clearly then you get here and just great people. And I think, you know, our student athletes, the humility, the grace, the story and the strength that so many of them show makes it special. People like yourself, our alums, we've got great coaches. So, but the initial kind of attraction was because of a phone conversation with Dr. Keenum.
Yeah, man. I remember when you got hired. One of the first things I was sitting with my dad. You came up, and I remember my dad pointing like, that dude comes from a football family, and I come from I play baseball. I come from a football family, dad, uncle, grandfather, and I remember the first thing he said was like, dude, that guy comes from a football family. What was that like when you were growing up, like with that kind of background? What did that do for you?
Yeah, it was, I can remember early on, like seeing people come up asking my dad for autographs, my uncles for autographs, and I never really thought too much about it. Then you just become normalized from it. They never talked to me about football really, which was really interesting. People thought it would be, you must sit around and like watch tape and stuff. Like, no, I didn't necessarily always hear, get read, children's books, go to bed. I would hear old football stories about some of their teammates.
Yeah.
But their main questions are always just, how do you use the game of football to make you better in life and to make.
Yeah.
So that was one of the really cool things about the story. And then as I got older and actually understood some of the stats and some of the things that they were able to do, I wasn't impressed by the stats. Even when Uncle Leroy got inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame, it wasn't the Hall of Fame. It was like the grace that he showed throughout all of that. And you see so many athletes or whatever it might be, like let things get to them. One of the beautiful things about them, they grew up with no running water, no electricity. The first time they ate out at a restaurant was they were getting recruited junior years in high school. But it was always like, okay, you can perform at the highest level. And, my Uncle Leroy was the first pick in the 75 draft. So, again, all the athletics, worldly accolades, but he always made it about, like, your education, your faith, how are you giving back to your community? And you couple that with, so the three younger brothers were able to play football. There's three older brothers that were all bigger, stronger, and faster, but the schools were still segregated where they went, so they didn't have access. So I've always looked at college sports as a way that if you provide young people, and we've got young men and women from all over the world, if you provide them education and opportunity, it can change the trajectory of their lives. But it was always fun, observing them from afar, but observing them not for their athletic success, but I think just how they carried themselves. And it was always fun. Although the hardest I've ever been hit in pads is from my dad too. So they're also competitive. They want to win at everything, whether it's card games or whatever it might be. They're going to want to win.
Yeah, same with my family. What
was it like? I mean, your dad was a great player in his own right. You grew up in a family of athletes too. Like, did you always sense the competitive nature?
Absolutely. My grandfather passed away before I was born, Big John. They were from McGee, Mississippi. Small town, about 45 minutes southeast of Jackson. And, Big John was kind of a legend in McGee. He coached football, was the announcer on the football team. He had a stutter. I never met him, but he had a stutter. And I heard, and everyone's told me the story, is anytime he got on the radio to talk McGee Trojan football, stutter went away. I hate I never got to meet him, but he raised 3 kids, 2 boys that played football. Uncle Chris went to Alabama's freshman year, Ole Miss 3 years, Panthers 10 years. My dad was Bama for 4 and Bears for 9 years. The crazy thing is I'm learning in pro ball is you get moved around a lot. Both of those guys and my grandfather, a couple years with the Patriots, the Boston Patriots. All 3 of them played for one team, and that's crazy to me that they all played for one team. I'm on my 3rd team in 6 years of minor league baseball. Fair. I'm on the roster, but the 26-man roster is the big league team. So I could still go to AAA on the roster, but this just it's a really great opportunity, man. I didn't see it coming. Yesterday or the day they called me was the deadline. So it was like, if they don't put me on the 40-man, I'm not going to get put on the 40-man. But the day before, my agent kind of told me it probably wasn't going to happen. So I had no expectations. They called me and added me. So, yeah, man, time to go try to win a job.
It's huge, and it's a testament to the hard work you put in, man. So we can, one, to get to see you now that making Starkville home, and I hear so much about your mom, your sister, from my wife Rachel. There, whether it's social media, following each other. When I heard that yesterday, it gave my heart did a big dance because I'm so happy for you.
I appreciate that. Quick story. I'm gonna get back to interviewing you, but yeah, my mom's big thing is ladybugs. Her grandmother, and this is you talked about faith earlier. This is a God thing for me, but no doubt about it. My mom's big thing's ladybugs. She was cleaning out my great grandmother that passed away, her grandmother, cleaning out the house when she passed away, and there were ladybugs. Like the only thing left in there was ladybugs, and God just started kind of giving her winks with ladybugs, like letting her know, like, hey, I have your grandmother. She's with me, and she's in a better place. And in all these different times in my life, like I've always messed with my mom about it. Like, oh, ladybug. Like, but weird things have happened over the years of like where I'm like, all right, Mom, I see what you mean. I don't really mess with her about it much anymore. Neither does my dad. But I'm like walking up to the tee box on hole number 2 at Old Waverly playing golf, and a ladybug flies on the windshield. I was like, all right, like that's crazy. I pointed out to my buddy Kyle. I was like, hey, man, ladybug. Like, my mom would be pretty fired up right now, kind of messing with him about it because my buddy Kyle was, he knows about it and all that. But then after the tee box, my next shot, they called me and they added me to the 40 man. And I was just one of those things, man, that like I've said it for years through like the good and bad, like God's got me. But like, that was one of those things that where I really believe it was a God thing, man.
So you were on the second tee at Waverly.
Yep.
Did you finish the round after you got the call?
I didn't go very well the rest of the day. I was apologizing. I was apologizing to my buddies, like, dude, I'm like, it's not good. But yeah, man, scatterbrained. But it was cool,
rightfully
cool,
so. I give you credit for keep going throughout the day or throughout the round.
Yeah, dude, it was. I'll never forget that, man. It was a cool day. But we got a lot of work to do. Still not on the big league team. But the opportunity's there. Let's go take it.
You'll get there, man. What you've been able to do through your career to date, and staying with it is special. So
yeah, just gonna
keep rolling.
Keep rolling, man. But dude, back to the interview of you, man. I went into your office not long ago, and you showed me these projects that you have coming, and I was blown away. Like, it just really cool, man. Just please tell everybody about it because I was blown away by it.
Yeah, so one, it's always good to when you come by. But there's a lot of things going on in college athletics right now. Clearly, there's a huge economic shift with the House settlement case, which essentially wraps up 3 antitrust cases, puts it all in one, and it allows us to go through a rev share. But with that, you also look at a lot of the things that we're doing from a facility standpoint and know that we got to continue to invest in our facilities. And we look at facilities, there's a couple components we always look at is, first and foremost, how can we keep our student athletes safe and healthy? So part of this House settlement, a lot of the roster were going away from scholarship limits per the old NCAA rules, going to roster limits. And so, for an example, in the sport of football, where a lot of teams now and typically would carry 125, 130 players on their roster, that's going to go down to 105. So as we're looking at spaces, everything is strategic in how do we keep our players safe? How do we keep them healthy as long as possible, knowing that in sport, it doesn't matter what sport you're playing, attrition through injury is going to happen. But if you can put the little things in place to make sure that from a recovery or from a nutrition standpoint, a recovery standpoint, that we're doing everything that we can to keep our players safe, and also to help show a pathway to get to the next level in what their sport is. Mm-hmm. And one of the projects we just completed was over at Humphrey Coliseum in the north end zone there. Underneath kind of the bottom floor of Humphrey Coliseum, we added, redid the men's and women's locker room, the hangout space, but also the sports medicine room there so they can have hot and cold tubs just when they're getting ready for practice. There's also, we look at from the wellness side and sports performance, if you will, also from a fan experience. So when we finished up our master plan, it looks at touching every facility. Now, one of the unique things, though, is that this house case, with rev share, it comes at, the rev share number is going to be starting in 25-26. So July 1 of 2025, we'll be able to start sharing up to $20.5 million with student athletes. So that's a new budget line item for us. So again, in the history of college sports, there's never been an economic shift like this. It's putting a lot of pressures on schools to find new revenues, figure out how they can be more efficient with their resources that they do have, innovation, creativity, all of that. So we're focusing on that element of it too, but also knowing we're blessed to work in the Southeastern participate in the Southeastern Conference, but also the level of competition is as good as it is in every sport. You look at football to basketball to baseball to everything, the level of competition in the Southeastern Conference. There, I actually had a coach last year tell us, after the SEC tournament, he told me, the national tournament's a lot easier than the SEC tournament. It just shows the level of depth of competition. And even you look at the like top to bottom in our leagues, there's not much room just to go have a gimme, if you will. So everything that we're doing now, we got to get ready for rev share. And our team, can't thank our team enough for tirelessly working to get our planning in place, our coaches and everybody on our support staffs. But also we know that you play the game so you can grow. Yeah. And if you expect last year's results to help us this upcoming season, you're not going to be successful that season. So that's kind of our same approach of we got to continue to make sure that we're investing in the areas that one, help our student athletes perform at a high level, attract the top talent to Starkville, retain the top talent in Starkville, develop that top talent in Starkville with these times that we're going through, but also understanding we've got fantastic fans, and we want to make sure that we enhance the fan experience. All that stuff takes a lot of resources. Again, mix that with the rev share numbers. There's a lot of things going on right now. The only thing that we can do is continue to share our vision for Mississippi State athletics. And you look at the facility that we finished up at Humphrey Coliseum, and then fast forward to today, we're coming off of 2 top 10 recruiting classes, one in men's basketball and one in women's basketball, the first time we've ever done that. And you say, yeah, it's because we got great coaches and Coach Jans and Coach Purcell and the culture they're building. But it's also some of those things that young men and young women, when they come here now for Mississippi State basketball, say, like, Humphrey Coliseum is rocking, and it's elite. Our fans are the club that we were able to do. All those things are great. And now what else for the player? And so the same thing exists. Baseball having a top 2 recruiting class this year. Dudy Noble is iconic, and the guts of what we have at Dudy Noble are there. And we'll continue to have to look at what's the next wave for baseball's needs. But that's one of the things you come to school like Mississippi State because you want to compete against the best. And I know I'm driven to be able to compete with the best everywhere I've ever been. And so I want to continue with that mindset, some of the projects and facilities we're doing. Yeah,
you were talking about, last time we talked, you were talking about your time at North Carolina.
Yep.
You went to a quote-unquote basketball school. And, what does football success mean to a university? Just overall in all of athletics, not just for football. But I know it does a lot for the school itself.
Yeah, it's huge. I remember growing up reading about Doug Flutie and what they called the Flutie effect after the Hail Mary at Boston College, and you saw enrollment spikes, and list goes on, and it all is tied back to just the television eyeballs that come to the sport of football. I wanted to see I worked for a great athletics director at North Carolina that is a mentor, friend, somebody I learned so much through, but I also wanted to see what's the economics of a quote-unquote blue blood basketball school. And I was so surprised, young in my career of it's great, all of that. But the true money is always going to be with football revenue. And football revenue, again, is tied so heavily to the eyeballs and television. You look at just the last 5 years in our league, over 80% is all driven by football viewership. So those are the kind of things you can't replicate in other sports. And football helps admissions. Football helps us, within athletics, helps pay for everything else in our athletics department. But it also helps communities grow. It helps business development. Since we've been here, you hear so much about what we did in 2014. And I was a religion major in college, so I always think of like AD and BC. It's almost like pre-DAC, post-DAC. What's been the growth? And so I think one of the things that we're really working through is how do we continue to replicate and get some momentum so that we know, understanding that we know like the realities of our enterprise or football is going to drive a lion's share of the revenue.
Yeah, and that's what I love about Mississippi State is that since even I've been here and before I was here, after I've been here, it's very apparent that all the sports work together, man. When football is going well, it helps baseball recruiting. When baseball is going well, it helps other sports recruiting. When basketball, soccer, you name it. But man, you look at what's going on around here right now. There's so much success going on. We got women's soccer hosting postseason soccer, number 1 in the country in some polls. You got basketball with so much excitement, like baseball, like number 2 recruiting class in the country. Which is, and from my baseball knowledge, that's a difficult thing to do. And I know we have such a gorgeous stadium here, but what that coaching staff has done for the baseball, man, that's like the recruiting number 2 in the country, even with all these other programs. I'm telling you, that's a feat. And what's it been like for you to be the AD with all this success going around in so many different sports right now?
You know, it starts with, like, we've got great student athletes and we got great coaches. And so for me, I think our job is always to provide resources, remove roadblocks, and allow our coaches to have an opportunity to go find success. And I'm just so excited for them. You know, when last weekend when we hosted the first round in women's soccer, I think the attendance was just over 3,400 people, and the NCAA site rep came up and said it was the largest opening round crowd in their history. And so I think when you look at, you know, winning the SEC championship this year in soccer, a regular season, but just within 7 months of that, Charlie Ewing, we call him Charlie the Champ, won an SEC championship in women's golf. A lot of people think, oh, you can't win an SEC championship in women's golf at Mississippi State. And no, the mindset that we have is we can be competitive in everything, and that's the expectation. Now, there's some realities. We've got to provide infrastructure, provide resources for that. So when I see the success, it has nothing to do with one person, 2 people. It has everything to do with the community and the institution. And it's really fun when you see all the fruits of so many people labor that come into place, and knowing how impactful it can be for our institution.
Man, that's well said. What's something that you would want to tell the fan base right now, as you know, the halfway point of 24-25 year is coming? What's something you want to tell the fan base that you would want to share?
Yeah, just one, thanks. Like in my role, I can't say thank you to so many people enough. Like the friendships that we've made here in such a short period of time. We just finished up our house, and so we've been moving a lot of times.
You've been building a house in Starkville.
Yeah.
What do you got on that?
Oh, we're in. Well, we got a couple things we got to finish up. But our girls, so Shane and Meatball, their stuff has been in storage for however long we've been here. So just to have their toys back and be able to have friends over, it's been great. But you think for our fans to continue to come and continue to support our student athletes. And look, we have a lot of success in some of our sports. We understand the results on the football field haven't been where we want them to be, and what's our expectation at Mississippi State. And I thank the fans that continue to look at it from an objective lens and understand good days are going to come. Like, good days are going to come. Football's unique in a sense of number of players, how the economics of it have changed with different dynamics of NIL, transfer, whatever it might be. So what we're building towards, I can see the clear picture of how good it's going to be. It just takes a little time, again, because of the magnitude of the sport. But you think about, there's some really good days. You know, when you think we're coming up on the holiday season, and my dad is a philosophy major, so he'd always make a stop and like show thanks. Like, what are you thankful for today? So when I think of today, I'm so thankful presently in the moment of where we're at. And I'm also driven knowing that the economics of our business have changed. A lot of the industry has changed. So we've got a lot of work to do, and we're going to need a lot of people for us to get to where we all really want to go. And we all know where Mississippi State can be. And I think it's similar. One of the stories I heard about you is you mentioned to Coach Lamonis, like, hey, you're going to win a national championship. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious what your thoughts were then, but also you saw something in our community, in our institution, like, you can do it here.
You can do it here. There's no doubt about it. I was fortunate enough to get 1 year under Coach Lamonis my senior year. And just that 1 year, I loved what he was about. I knew he could recruit talent here. I knew he could coach talent once it got here. I love his support staff around him that he's hired and has had. You know, I always joke with Coach Lamonis about just how I was like, hey, I said you were going to win one, but because 2020, the next year, was canceled. So he really won it the next year after I said that. And I was like, hey, man, I thought you were going to do it, but I didn't think you were going to do it that fast. So, like, I didn't call it a year, but, man, he's awesome. He's absolutely awesome. And I knew he could do it. I knew they could do it. And because whenever we left, my class left, there were some guys there that they had gotten in that were going to do a good job. And love those guys, and they've been great to me, and they've been fortunate enough, and you've been and I'm thankful enough to say that like they've allowed me to come back here in the off season and train, and you guys allow me to do that. Thank you, and it's so cool what y'all do for former athletes at Mississippi State, allowing us to kind of come back and train, because there's just so many resources here. I get the recovery, the strength and conditioning side, the baseball activities for me and for other sports, other things. But it speaks a lot for what this university does for former athletes. It's not just like, hey, what can you do for me right now? Like now that I'm gone, and you guys still allow me to have a place to train, well, and that says a lot. Thank you.
Say every once you're a Bulldog for life, and you're always welcome home. And I know you're a little unique because you live here now. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you that too. What kind of the ingredients that led you to come back? But we're all here because of the great student athletes that have been here prior to us, and the coaches and so many administrators and support staff that have helped Mississippi State get to where it's at. And so I think all of our team feels such a large sense of responsibility to push it forward too, and to make sure that so when the next wave of athletes comes, and it is a little different. I think when you and your teammates were here, there was, from everything I've heard, of like extreme leadership within a program, upperclassmen, kind of more how you think of traditionally, whether you're a freshman in high school and by the time you're a senior, your voice is probably a little bigger. You're setting the standard, you're setting the tone of a locker room. Now the dynamics of most of our rosters have shifted, where you got young women and young men coming in from all over with the transfer portal, and you don't have time to have the natural maturation process that traditionally you have to do. So we've got to evolve and adapt to that. And we've had, an NFL head coach zoom in with our head coaches just talking about that. Okay, if you got 40, 50% of your roster turning over, how do you onboard people quickly? And nationally, we're trying to solve for some of these issues so we can go back to what we all, I think, want to slow down some of these things. But one of the things that I think was special about your class was just the leadership that you provided. And so clearly you've had a lot of experiences. The game of baseball has taken you a lot of places. Mm-hmm. And your family's history, you could be in a lot of different places. What led you, as you're continuing to pursue your professional career, bring you back to set up shop in Starkville?
I think the night we got put out in Omaha my senior year, someone asked me, like, what are you going to miss the most? And it's the people, man. Like, I've formed such a great bond just with the community around here, and they've just been so great. Everyone's so nice, man. Everyone treats you like family. I grew up an hour and a half away from here, and I still go back to Rankin County all the time. But in the off season, look, I get 3 months at home. I get 9 months of season, spring training season, and just for those 3 months I'm home. Mississippi is going to be my home for the rest of my life, and I live in Starkville just because, I got 2 younger sisters here, and my family's up here all the time. We have a little place here in Starkville that the whole family will come and gather, and it's just home, man.
Is everybody getting together for Thanksgiving?
Oh yeah, this is it's the first time we haven't had an Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving Day, which I got mixed feelings about it. I liked the Thanksgiving game, but now that it's on a Friday, we're gonna go to Oxford, and we're going to head over and watch the game. It'll be my sister's last game dancing. She's a senior. And so we're going to go check that out. But we're going to do Thanksgiving in Pearl and McGee, and we'll be in Starkville. And then we're going to drive over to Oxford on Friday. So as Thanksgiving comes, it's always a fun time of year, A lot of sports going on, and it's always rivalry football. It's a fun time of year.
It's that kind of transition time, with football coming to an end, basketball beginning. I love, because I've grown up in athletics, and now our oldest daughter, Shane, and meatball for the group. Shane's 14, Riley is 10. When in the summertime, when there's not a whole lot of sports, especially college, they've just always been around college sports. They're like, there's nothing to watch on TV. So I think it's just such a good time. Always a good time to spend time with your family, loved ones, and friends. But then you do just get to see the cool things that happen in sports too.
Yeah, man, it's the best. You get a bunch of sports kind of like kind of mashing together, and you get to kind of watch what you want to watch. But man, what are you looking forward most to whenever when people ask you about like the spring semester? I know that it's coming. I know we still got some work to do in the fall, but as the spring semester comes around, what are you most excited for?
Yeah, working on a college campus, time goes by so fast because of the academic calendar. Every time we go into the spring, again, you call me like a hopeless romantic, but I got in this business so young men and young women could graduate. And every spring, I'm always reminded of that because you blink and we're already talking May in commencement. And so I always get so excited of graduation. Because of just the nature of our business right now, we also have a lot of new people coming in mid-years that are coming in too. So that's kind of recently changed, and I always love to get to meet our new student athletes that are coming in. It almost has this new energy of, like when you remember when you went to school for the first time, I was so scared. I had a Nissan Maxima with 15-inch rims and a bad speaker system, and I was so upset when my mom left me out there by myself. I was like, what am I going to do? So it also kind of reminds us of all the challenges that we have. And the reason why we're doing what we're doing is to help young people. And that spring semester, that turn of the year, and as you go a little bit longer into as January goes through the February, you're starting to kick up baseball season, and then you start to hear smell the smells of Duty Noble. And then you got March Madness coming up, and you get to we got two teams that are continuing to get better, try to pursue something special this year. So there's all these different things. But spring, I think, for me always is a time of welcoming new people, welcoming new Bulldogs, but also getting ready to keep our main thing the main thing, which is to graduate student athletes. And I'm really pleased with our academic staff. That's something I can't thank them enough. To have a 91% graduation success rate is special. And that's something that will never change for us. Our top priority is always going to be to graduate student athletes.
Yeah, man. One day my baseball jersey will be ripped off of me, but no one's ever going to take away my college degree.
Absolutely.
And that was something. Whenever I graduated from here, it was a big deal to me. It's something that no one can take away from you. In life and sports, it's always one day is going to be your last baseball game. One day is going to be your last football game, but you can always be a college graduate if you come here, work hard, and work. For me, I was working with the academic staff like crazy to help me get graduated. But yeah, man, that's awesome to hear, because that was a big deal for me, and it's awesome to hear that you guys are still doing it. But you talking about March Madness, man. As basketball is getting cranked up, like this is exciting.
It's gonna be a fun year.
I was in South Haven for the Utah game, and that game showed me a lot. The men's team just having a slow first half, coming out the second half, playing so well. Man, I know you talked about recruiting, but talk to us about this year's basketball teams, men's and women's.
I mean, both of them are that's one of the fun things about college sports is every team's a little more unique each year, a little different. And I'll start on the women's side, just to have a player like Jerkayla Jordan come back. And, I think when you get to be like Jerkayla as a great player, great young woman, what she cares about too is like, how do I help a team around me get in a position so we can get back to the tournament? And then you never know what happens. So it was really fun to see her maturation over the off season. And you add pieces like, or having people like Debrisha Poe come back. You add pieces like Medina, who is going to continue to get better. Mm-hmm. It's going to be fun to see. And that's one of the things, as you know, chemistry only evolves over time throughout the season. And on the men's side, you're having a player like Josh Hubbard, who's, right here from our state, that has, Josh plays with such a unique energy, but he cares about his teammates. And really, it's exciting. You mentioned the game against Utah. That was an early test that some teams early in the season that haven't developed great chemistry could say, like, yep, we're just not going to do it.
Couldn't agree more.
Coach Jans always does an unbelievable job getting our guys to play hard, to keep going forward. And so to see how they came back that second half against a lot of adversity was really cool and a great sign to see. And I know they've got a huge one this Friday at SMU. And then as we gear up towards SEC play in both the men's and women's side, that's one of the things that we really try to maximize early is some of these tests. Because, again, the depth of our league in women's and men's basketball, it's a gauntlet. And we got to prepare now, but it's going to be fun. and having the atmosphere that we have at Humphrey Coliseum now is really cool. And so that's one of the things that if we continue to show up and support our student athletes, I know that's a huge help when we do have recruiting conversations with student athletes. Like if you're a student athlete, you're working your tail off. If you're a parent of a student athlete, you want your son or daughter to play in front of a lot of people that see how hard they've worked and the fruits of their labor. And so that's a huge advantage for us. We talked about the soccer earlier. It's a huge advantage for us in recruiting to say, hey, look, we've got 3,400 people watching our young women play soccer. And that's something that we can't say it enough. This is not about one or two people. It's about everybody. And if we get everybody together, aligned, there's nothing that we can't do together.
Pulling on the same side of the rope.
That's it.
Everybody pulling together. And it's funny you say along those lines is, with all the coaching changes I had while I was here with baseball, it was no matter what, we just made sure everyone was pulling on the same side of the rope. And we kept going and just put our head down. And at the end of it, you look up and you can see what you did. And it was really cool. And, and we had great coaches. We had absolutely great coaches, and they were a big part of how we kept doing that every single day. But, man, earlier you were talking about the rev share, about the $20.5 million. Can you elaborate a little bit more just for me to understand it better? What do you mean by $20.5 million?
Yeah, so part of this settlement it's preliminarily been approved. The final approval won't come until April of 2025. But with that...
Okay, so we got some time.
Okay. But with pending final approval of the settlement, then we will be able to start sharing revenue with student athletes. So the way I kind of process it in my mind, over time in college athletics, we've always been about amateurism of student athletes. Mm-hmm. But over time, too, as revenues continue to grow substantially,
a lot.
Television contracts, we've always stayed behind amateurism, and we've invested in different things, different areas. Staffs have gotten bigger, coaches' contracts have gotten bigger, but the student athletes that are generating a majority of the revenue for departments haven't had a chance to have access to any of the monies, if you will. So one of the things this settlement provides is a mechanism for schools to participate in rev share with their student athletes. So the $20.5 million is the aggregate of all the Power 4 schools. So the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12. You take 22% of their revenues, and that's the number that we're able to share. So this is supposed to give us protection for 10 years that we can share revenue with student athletes, and we're still working through what the formula is what team can get what. So there's still a lot of work to do, but as we're planning, we do know, again, pending final approval, it's just going to be a new line item for us. The thing about it, too, is this is just the start. It's going to continue to grow. So there's levers written into the settlement that it's going to grow by a minimum of $1 million between year 1 and year 2. Then after that, anytime you see a new television deal, or if other schools are selling more ticket revenue, that number is only going to continue to go up. And so it's a huge shift, again, a shift like we've never seen before in college athletics.
It's crazy.
And it's something that, we all got to take very seriously, because
it's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere, and the game has totally changed. It's completely changed if you want to be competitive. I think that's the main question I ask. I think as a leader of the department, I ask, how good do we want to be, or how competitive do we want to be? The easy answer is say we don't want to be competitive. But if you want to be competitive in this space and in this league, you're going to have to find ways to be competitive in this space. So that's something that, again, our team is working tirelessly to get us in a position where we can plan. But again, I can't stress it enough. There's never been a bigger shift in college athletics history, and you can't do this stuff alone. And
I saw it firsthand, man. When I was done in 2019 after our last game, because our season ended in June, so it really was the end of the 2019 year, or 2018-2019 year. I remember saying, we have 11.7 scholarships divided up between baseball and then not having any athletes get paid to just go into the wild, wild west of what do you want, what will get you here, blank check. It sounds like that they kind of have a plan in place to slow it down a little bit and kind of put some guidelines on it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think, when NCAA rolled out legislation to help with NIL or lift restrictions on NIL, there was no guardrails. So then it just became all over the place. I think one of the things that's positive about this is, okay, we know the rules of engagement. We know what the guardrails are, what we can and can't do, whether it's you're working in administration or our coaches. What do you tell students, student athletes? It's opened the door for a lot of rogue actors trying to get involved in college sports, whether agents, whatever it might be. So I think this is an opportunity in time that we have to be assertive and confident in where we're going, that we can continue to now put guardrails back.
Yeah.
But here locally, we got to participate that from the conference level and the national level to be competitive. But locally, it doesn't still change what we're doing. Our number one goal is always to be, again, graduate. Our second goal is to continue to equip kids with tools for life. So when they leave here, they know what to go do next, because there's that awkward gap of, okay, if I don't go play professionally, how do I enter the workforce? What do I need to do? And we started an athlete services division right as we got here to start developing our student athletes so they know what to do.
The dog program, right?
And part of that is the dog program, absolutely.
Part of it.
So the dog program is just about developing a winning game plan, knowing that football is critically important. And we hope every player goes on and gets called like you yesterday, or is like Dak Prescott, or is like Chris Jones. Absolutely, that's our goal for everybody.
Yeah.
But we also got to face the reality. When I went to Wake, I thought I was going to the league, man. I was not going to the league. I realized that. So we got to have here are plans that you can do. So that's what we're doing. Even in the rev share, it's different now. We want to make sure our student athletes know what financial literacy means. They have to know what taxes mean. They also have to, I grew up and I was blessed. I had two parents who graduated college, but we never talked about money. So we want to make sure that they know, hey, these are some simple, scalable things to be smart with your finances. Yeah. And then we can't regardless of the rev share and all this, you can't lose sight that they're still young people. And when we have, one of the special things about Mississippi State is, if you go to some of our venues and our events, you'll see a lot of our student athletes of other sports. They're supporting student athletes of the competition going on then. Mm-hmm. Same with coaches. So we want to make sure we continue to provide transformational experiences so they can come here and have that moment and know how special Mississippi State is. And there's a lot of pressures. I felt some pressure as a student athlete. Chris Paul was my year at Wake Forest. He probably had a lot more pressure because he was the face of a program, of the basketball program, number one team in the country for a little bit that year. And the reality is now that was just when Facebook was starting. I think maybe my junior year. Now we've got so many ways for our kids to feel these outside pressures to perform. You mix that with they're still young people. Some of the conversations I have with recruits, that's one of the negative things about working in this business, because it always ages you. I've got no clue what show they're talking about, what song they're talking about, but because they're young kids. And then lastly, even with all the changes, we have to continue to teach our student athletes winning is important, and that's not going to change for us. But when we talk about winning, I've always said it's not about the scoreboard. It's about the details that you can do in your life every day. Then if we get that right, the scoreboard will take care of itself. And that hopefully translates to life, because as you look around our country, there's life is hard.
Very hard.
Families are hard, relationships are hard. One of the beautiful things about sports is it's got unique ingredients where it can teach you so many life lessons.
So many.
And now let's capitalize on all of that and help send our student athletes down the road so they can be, great advocates, ambassadors for Mississippi State, but also can help, I think one or two people in different communities can change the trajectory of those communities. And I think if we do it right, our student athletes will continue to do special things as we're seeing it happen right now.
Yeah, you see it anywhere. What could have changed if this one person doesn't go there with the collective team? It's like if we don't have Dak Prescott, like you said, before Dak, post Dak, like it could have completely changed the trajectory of that. And to be focused on each individual person, to graduate, to be better human beings, be ready for life once the game's over. That's awesome, man, because that really is the whole reason you come to college. Is in baseball, it's weird. If you stay 4 years in college, you get penalized in the draft. You won't get any money, and it's almost like a penalty to come back your senior year. And my thing was always like staying here 4 years was, man, I committed to a 4-year college. Mm-hmm. So like I'm gonna stay my senior year and try to finish this thing out with the guys. And I love what you're saying. Awesome, because I saw it firsthand. We had a lot of guys that I stay in touch with that coming here to Mississippi State, there were so many resources put together that's helped them in life past Mississippi State. Guys that aren't playing baseball anymore. That's really great that you guys are doing that.
I think one of the things that you think about too is how can we help share the great stories that's going on at Mississippi State, whether it's, before I got here, I didn't know how good our vet school was. I didn't know we had one of the top engineering schools in the country. I didn't know about all the innovation we're doing through ag, or what we're doing with healthcare in Meridian, like stuff that we're doing on the coast. There's incredible work. You talk about there's no better service, I think, than the men and women in our military, and what Mississippi State's doing to help advance our military is special. And I think athletics is a unique medium to make sure that we continue to showcase all the great things that's going on at Mississippi State. We've got great people here.
We do. We really do.
And how can we continue to just enhance it?
Yeah, and you asked why I call Starkville home sometimes in the year when I have, not playing ball. But Starkville's one of those places, man, it's like it just grows on you. You start meeting people, you start going around town eating at places, and it just grows on you, man. Yeah. You fall in love with it. You fall in love with the community, and another big reason is year-round entertainment. You have sports year-round, but love that side of it. And you're talking about the stories of these players. Like, I just interviewed Claudell Harris. I had no idea his mom beat cancer twice, and having him, like, talk through that process in his life. See, like, now when I go watch Claudell next time, I'm going to understand, like, his story a little bit, like what got him to the court here at the Humphrey Coliseum. Just getting to learn all these stories has been awesome. You kind of start, and it's hard nowadays because of these transfer portal stuff. People come in 1 year, you might not learn about them until they're gone.
Sure.
So like now, what you guys are doing, trying to with getting some stories out on people, it's really great. It's awesome. So the fan base can kind of connect with them a little bit quicker than the old days of college sports.
Yeah. And the reason we're continuing to do is, again, we had great players that have been here for a long time, players like yourself and so many others. It's our responsibility to continue to advance forward and showcase. There's so many good things. Whether I just left the McDaniel Performance Nutrition Center and seeing some of our student athletes in there eating lunch, and a couple of our female golfers were in there, and we got two young women from literally thousands and thousands of miles away from Starkville, and they have unique stories in their own right. And you mix that all in Starkville, mix that with great education, with great sport. It's on us to tell those stories because our kids are doing some amazing things.
A couple weeks ago, I was able to meet Coach Levy. I was really impressed with what he told me and his plans and what he has set goals wise. And it was a lot more in depth than just, we got to recruit great players, we got to coach great players. It was just in-depth stuff of his plan and what he has in place here. You hired him. I love the hire. I absolutely love Coach Levy. I'm bought in. What led you to hire Coach Levy?
Yeah, when we were looking for our next football coach at Mississippi State, there was a couple core things that we were looking for. One, somebody with great vision, and it had to be more than just X's and O's. Like the ability to have a winning culture, winning program built over time was a given, but there's got to be something more. And one of the things that I've loved about sports is it's very relational. because of circumstances outside of our control, the nature of college football and some of our other sports, it's became very transactional. So I wanted to make sure that we have to understand what the transactional nature is, but that doesn't say we can't still have a relational developmental program. So when we recruit a young man, they know when they're coming to Mississippi State to play football that we care about them first and foremost, that we know their families, and then ultimately it's going to be hard too. So we got to be able to push them to get to another level. So when you look at Coach Levy from a schematic standpoint, clearly was somebody that had recruited within our state. It's cliche sometimes to say fit, but somebody that fits in the Starkville community. He's, when he's not in season, I think, was trying to meet so many different people, and the amount of requests that he gets as a new head football coach here, he was so gracious with whether it's different things for children's organizations or churches. He just wanted to let everybody know how appreciative and grateful he was to be here. So I think you mix all that in a beautiful family. Clearly, his style of play offensively, you knew that we're going to need to continue to stretch the field and utilize every inch of grass that we have on the football field, and knew his ability to continue to recruit and attract top quarterbacks. That mixed with just the history of the high school players in our state and what we're building to make sure that we have the infrastructure we need for a sustainable program, you knew it was going to be a great fit. And couldn't be more pleased with the way that Coach Levy's continued to connect with players through adversity, through tough times. It would have been easy at a lot of points of the season to splinter, and we haven't seen that. Now we just got to continue to push forward, but that's something that I knew there's not many coaches that can do that. And again, you mix the relational side of it with a vision of a program that's bigger than just football. It's about life. I think we got the great fit. When you were around him, what stood out to you?
He's just personable, man. Like he, and I watched him talk to other people other than me, and he dives into the conversation he has with anyone. He forms a relationship with them, and you said vision, I said plan. His plan, vision, whatever you want to call it, it's a success. There's successes there, and I've been very impressed with talking to some of the guys on the football team. They're still completely bought into this year, and I know you said you don't want to put your head in the sand about what's going on. Look, man, it's a first-year process, and I'm a believer. I grew up on process, and I grew up as an Alabama football fan. I love Mississippi State baseball, but shout out Coach Polk. Loved watching you coach. But I grew up an Alabama football fan, and I remember the days before Saban when he came in there, it was a process. It's going to take time. I remember they lost to someone, Alabama, ULM, I think was the first year he lost to. I don't know. But what I saw growing up as an Alabama fan, what Tuscaloosa was like before Saban, and now what Tuscaloosa is like post Saban, I'm a believer in a process, and it takes Rome wasn't built in a day, whatever cliche you want to use. And I like cliches because cliches, as I told a reporter this year, whenever in Durham, a reporter would ask me post games, and I would always give a cliche answer. And he was always like, "You're just going to keep giving me cliches, aren't you?" I was like, "Well, they're cliches for a reason. They work. There's a reason why, work hard and good things happen. There's truth to that." And I believe in him. I do. And I said that after the Texas game. I believe in what he's building. I was really impressed with my conversation with him, and I'm behind him. I'm behind Coach Levy, and not that my endorsement of Levy means anything, but sure I believe in him, man. I believe in him. I love the hire, and I'm excited what he's going to build. I really am.
Well, it means a lot to all of us, and best days for Mississippi State football are ahead of us. And you mentioned it, and we've said it before. The programs, you got to have consistency over time. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we're so focused on. How do we have consistency with intentionality too, of setting a consistent standard, that it's not like sometimes you think there's a quick fix for any program, and you can see whether it's the blue bloods, if you will. And I always talk about just lived experience went through it at Wake. We were so bad my first couple of years, but you know what? We committed to each other. Like, we're not the most athletic, we're not the most talented, but we're going to commit to doing the little things every day at a high level. I remember we started going through. We didn't watch film in the meeting rooms for some time. We would have full pads on the practice field and go through it to try to push ourselves to a different level. You mix all that up, you compound it, you multiply it over a little bit of time, and you win an ACC championship. Same principles apply in all of our sports. It's showing up and doing the little things every day at a high level. And I know from just observing Coach Levy, from being around him, that's what he's bringing to the program. Unfortunately, again, as mentioned earlier, because it's such a big operation, football programs are big vessels, and they, just like a big vessel, it doesn't turn very quickly. But once you're really on the inside seeing it and you're seeing it turn, you know, okay, we're getting the course corrected. And then once you get that course corrected, then beautiful things happen. Mm-hmm. And I know with the steps that he's put into place to lead our program, the course is getting corrected.
Man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. For me, it's been great getting to learn what's going on behind the scenes, what plans you have, and just the overall vision of what we got going on here.
Man, it's been an honor. It's been a privilege getting to know you, your family. Always a good day to be a Mississippi State Bulldog. Hail State.
Hail State.